And I was like, either right played on like whatever the maybe Tuesday morning. I mean, yes, there's a text message. Yes.
Again, I didn't feel like I was invited, so I didn't go.
Race for the governor's council.
Yeah, I'm the secretary. Yeah, it's exciting.
Hello.
Hello.
Nice shirt.
My favorite state rep candidate. And her guy.
Mine too.
So this is an interesting day, huh?
This is great. Good turnout. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to hearing the candidates speak.
Yep. And we're going to hold them to it, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But that looks like a pretty good turnout.
Yeah, it's
Cars
a great
showing
turnout.
up.
It's exciting. And it's hot. It got hot all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Hi, Lorraine.
I would have gone that.
How are you? Nice. Very nice. Hi.
Hello.
Sharp food.
Sure, but I'm going to warn you.
What's the problem? We're all isolated.
Hi, Robert. What do you get to say for yourself before you really say anything?
Well, what I have to say for myself is I'm the one Trump candidate on the ballot. I have a plan to follow his America First policy. I also plan for Massachusetts first because Massachusetts is what we really love even most. It's a wonderful state. We all love Massachusetts, and that's going to involve ending Massachusetts as a de facto sanctuary state, getting crime treated as crime, and ending the wind farms in not just the U.S. territorial waters, but also specifically Massachusetts, because it is one big time bomb that we got to fix.
Yeah, it hurts the wildlife, right?
Wildlife, everything.
Boating, it's a
human
hazard
life.
of navigation.
There's no fish. There's no commerce. You can't have fishermen. They're canceling their whole season, and they're going to go bankrupt. So what
That's
it is,
not good.
If you ask a mathematician the question, how many of those blades will eventually fall off the turbines, the answer is 100%.
All of them.
100%, because at some point each one of them will be abandoned.
Yeah.
It will be abandoned, and nobody's going to be doing anything to maintain it, and the things will fall. And when they do, it's going to be like the equivalent of an atomic bomb. So we're the Bay State. I want to preserve us as a Bay State and not have our beautiful oceans turn into the Dead
And you
Sea.
can't even recycle those. I hear they bury them. It's like ridiculous.
I'm an engineer, first of all. It's an engineering failure on every single level. Those wind farms, the destruction, everything about the EV movement.
So what do you think about the desperation of those who don't want Donald Trump to be the president? I think it's gone to the nth level, obviously.
Well, it's interesting
with
you should
July
ask,
13
because a couple of the candidates, the other two candidates that are on the ballot, are already here, and they are in that exact same position. Talk about lunacy when you hear that one of them, okay, I'll say his name, John Dean, says that Trump has the mind of a 4-year-old child. Come on.
Are you kidding?
I would like to see them have a debate with each other, and we'll find out who has the lower level of intellect, if you know what I mean. So, but I also am starting to see his book. His book is so rife with crimes. It's nonstop crime. Oops. And what I have a theory about Trump derangement syndrome, which is very interesting, and I think it will fit and explain a lot of things. People that hate Donald Trump, it's not like they necessarily hate him personally, because it's really like they
don't even know him.
They loved him years ago when he was
everybody
before
loved him.
political. But the point of the matter is, I think what they fear is the long arm of the law, and they know
They know what they've been up to.
They know what they've been up to. And this book right here by John Deaton,
Yeah.
he knows, he tells you what he's been up to.
Oh, wow.
And there's even some shocking story in there about how he framed his own sister. He committed a crime, cutting his own arm, causing 40 stitches on his own arm, calling the police, getting her arrested, put in jail for that. He was a chief prosecutor of the Marines.
Dude.
So what I discovered when I read that book is that was a lot of other crimes in there, like you can't believe it. But that one in particular, his life in the hood, life of crime in the hood, kind of went cha-ching with his life in the law world because he was chief prosecutor for the Marines.
When you have a second, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Well, anyway, yeah, and Kamala Harris is not eligible. They can't take Biden off the ballot in 5 states, I hear. So they're a mess.
Oh, it's a disaster. It's, and now she wants to, tag. She wants to regulate. She wants to go after those who are in the food processing industry, saying that they're price gouging. But it was her and their attack on the energy that destroyed the whole industry.
I have a question.
Why am I interviewing? Because she's running for office, and I walked up to him and he was standing here, and I said, "So what do you get to say for you?"
But I want to ask him a question. While
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So you're against this guy. Why is his book there?
Because a lot of people don't read it. A lot of people do not read it, but then he
Like Dreams from My Father. Nobody read that either.
He talks
But
about.
why are you promoting his book?
Oh, I'm not. Oh, I'm not.
It's on your table, though.
Oh, no.
He's got that half of the table. Dean has this half of the table.
Is he running?
Yes, he's
today?
yes.
Where?
He's right over there.
It's a goatee.
All right, thank you.
I might talk about
Well,
that.
it's careful because I thought
So we're gonna hear from both of them. Yeah.
I might talk about it. So we're still on.
No, he has only half a table.
Okay, got
He's
it.
renting half a
Got
table.
it. Okay, thank you for clarifying.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, well,
I think we're starting. John,
I think we got to start. so
Kathy's got to. I got to go.
over.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Who wants me? Yes. What is it?
Okay, so this is we're going to be talking with the candidates. You don't have to film this.
Well, I am
You have
filming
to
it.
figure out speaking order, okay? So it's
Okay.
you,
John here. So we're figuring out what's going to happen.
so we got to figure out who's going first, right? It's going to be the 3 U.S. candidates.
Normally they've been going alphabetical.
Okay, so it's really up to you unless you want to pick cards that I have.
You can go alphabetical.
So we're trying to figure out who's going first.
Okay.
Who's second and third. Okay, alphabetical. Okay, so let's see. Antonella's, you're first, I guess. All right.
Ian's second. That's fine.
All right.
Clean up here.
If that's what are you all okay with that?
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Oh, do you want any? Is there going to be
got that
an
straight?
organized
I got it.
question? Kathy, is there going to be an organized question and answer? Or
There will be questions today. Yes, we have. So the speakers have. I'll explain it. But speakers have up to 10 minutes to speak, and then after that there'll be like 5 minutes to answer
Okay.
questions.
okay, cool.
Five election terms. I'm in my ninth year.
Okay, everyone, we are underway. It's 2:30 and we're going to begin. Let me introduce Kathy Lynch now.
You should be a radio worker, announcer with that voice. Welcome, everybody. Kathy Lynch, Republican State Committee woman, and I hope the whole town hears us because we have 6 candidates that you're going to hear today. They made it on the ballot, and they're going to have an opportunity to speak. Each of the speakers has up to 10 minutes to speak without being interrupted, and then there'll be a 5-minute question and answer. All politicians must be able to answer any question that's thrown at them if they're going to be in office. We know what it's like out there. And there could be some tough questions. Not that I'm saying there's going to be tough questions. I'm just saying that it's up to you to decide what you want to know about the candidates. I want to thank Paul Fitzgerald and Diane Fitzgerald, who have provided this wonderful location. And Paul, here's a little something for you. Where are you? Where are you, Paul? Right here. Woohoo! A little bit of bling. Thank you so much. It's patriotic, and it's Republican, it's American, and I just appreciate this expansive property. We've got flowers, green grass, and we're enjoying the dog days of summer. We have today some state committee people. If you'd raise your hand, who's here as a state committee person? I know we have some. Okay, Mark, why don't you say what district you're from?
Worcester Middlesex.
Mark Bedanza. That is my counterpart, the Worcester Middlesex district. He will be handling the second part as MC, the last part. So I'll do the first part. Who else is here? Over there you can see Doreen Deschler. And what's your district?
Third Middlesex District.
Tell us your towns.
Chelmsford, Carlisle, Weston, Waltham, Lexington, Concord, Carlisle.
You got it? Okay. And Mark and I are the Worcester and Middlesex District, and there's 10 municipalities. We're talking Ashby, Townsend, Lunenburg, Lancaster, Leominster. We have Fitchburg, we have Clinton and Shirley, and I think that's 10. Is that right, 10? And Groton and Westford. Okay. So I didn't rehearse, okay? But there's 10, and I usually know it. Really glad to have you here. We also have some Republican town chairs, town committee chairs. Who's here that is a town committee chair? What I'd really like for you all to know is that you've got a network in Massachusetts of Republicans. We have town committee chairs, we have state committee members, and we have candidates. And that's what this is about today. So today how it will go is we've drawn the speaking order, and we'll start with, hold on, Andrew Kuchar, no? Oh, Nick Pirro, then we'll go Andrew Kuchar, and then Lynn Archambault. And then after that, we'll have the U.S. Senate candidates, and Mark Bedanza will introduce them. See if there's anything else. Please help yourself to food. I asked the Republican town committees in this district to bring food, and I really appreciate that. Help yourself to food and drinks. And enough of this, right? Enough of this. Let's get on to the candidates. So our first candidate is running for state senate, and his name is Nick Pirro. Nick will tell you all about himself and his campaign. Go, Nick.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Paul, for hosting us today. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nick Pirro. I'm from Lunenburg. Louder?
No, okay. Come this way a little. That's good. Just to that camera.
All right. Start over. I'm Nick Pirro. I'm originally from Leominster. I live in Lunenburg now with my wife and 2 kids. Never been in politics. Self-employed business owner. I have 4 businesses, 30 full-time employees. Just got sick of what was going on in Boston with all the additional mandates and felt like I couldn't sit by and be a bystander anymore. So, like I said, I've been learning as I go here. What's going on in Boston right now has been extremely frustrating for everybody, business owners.
Just closer.
Closer. All right. See, I'm still learning here, everybody, so I apologize. Get it out of the way here now. Hopefully we're all friendly here. So I just felt the need to get involved. I couldn't tell you why originally, but I'm not afraid to stand up for what I believe is right. I am not somebody that will back down when faced with adversity. And I am not someone that will be controlled by money. The amount of money that the people in Boston are lining their pockets with that comes out of our taxes is absolutely ridiculous. It would be my goal to get in there and prove that everything that we think they're doing is what actually is happening, to be a true voice for the people of the Worcester and Middlesex District. I have no preformed agendas, nothing that I feel has to be that I'm trying to get done except for more transparency and accountability for everything that's been going on. I do believe that we should be amending the right to shelter law. We should be placing our veterans and Massachusetts residents first and priority them. And I'm assuming walking around talking with everybody, it's the same stuff that everybody is. It's the affordability for our kids. My son just turned 18 years old. I'm sure he would like to move out, and his mother and I would love for him to move out. When I was 18, I moved out with a couple of friends, but for kids to nowadays to be able to move out, it's just unaffordable. The traditional family dynamic of one person working and the other person staying home with the kids is unattainable in Massachusetts at where we're at right now. And I would like to do whatever we can, and if the funds were spent appropriately on the state level, I don't believe that any of the districts would be facing all these 2.5 overrides and having to make the decisions, putting neighbors against neighbors, cutting funding to schools and fire departments and police departments. That's where the money should ultimately be spent first. So I'm not going to take up here preaching. I will gladly answer any questions that anybody has. So I will open it up to whoever has any questions. Oh, yes, sir, in the back.
You support Trump?
Yes, so here I am, yes. I am going to be voting for Trump. So I will finish that with, that man does make it a little difficult for me to knock on a stranger's door in this state and tell them I'm a Republican. That right there is about the most difficult part about it. But yes, I did vote for Trump in the last election, and I will be voting for him in this election. Is that all we got for questions, everybody?
Good enough for me.
You are going to make this too easy for me here. Come on, I'm the first one up here.
One question.
Yes, sir.
What would be the first bill that you are thinking about to propose or anything, change in the, or do you have anything?
No, I don't have any preconceived things that I want to get done there. To be honest with you, Ray, I've never even haven't figured out how to write a bill yet. But we will get there. In my own private life, in my business, I hire and surround myself with people that are smarter than me. So I do already have a young man that I have in mind that is would be somebody that I would like to have in the State House who has worked on with other candidates and other elected officials, and I'd be looking into them and some other people for guidance on that one. So. Yes, sir.
Are you aware of the recent Second Amendment, anti-Second Amendment legislation that the governor signed, and what's your position on that? Do you believe it's unenforceable and unconstitutional? What would your say about that?
So I have had my license to carry since I was 21 years old. I'm a Second Amendment supporter. I do not believe what she did is legal. Massachusetts has the second lowest firearm mortality rate in the country. Right now, the Surgeon General put out something saying that firearms was the leading cause of death for children 1 through 19. Now, those may be correct numbers for the whole entire country, but that's not how it is in Massachusetts. Our gun laws here were already strict enough. They were more than strict. They should have been eased up. Our stuff already included background checks and all that stuff.
Do you feel that those things are constitutional, or is the entire idea of gun legislation unconstitutional?
Well, I would say that it's a protected right by the Constitution. I do believe in common sense gun ownership. Do I think that everyone should be able to purchase a firearm unless they've given a reason not to? Yes, I think that you should be able to have it by right. Obviously, people convicted of dangerous crimes, then I think you would lose those rights.
Well, but why firearms? Why not staplers?
Well, I don't have an answer for you on that one right there. So
maybe they shouldn't be out in public if they're that dangerous, right?
So I was in the State House a week ago. I went to different offices and state reps and state senators about the informal session.
Louder.
Okay, I was in the State House last week. week we went to 200 officers, every state rep and every state senator, about the informal bills being passed in illegal without a quorum. And one of the bills was the gun bill. And I was told by Cronin's office that the NRA is already suing the state of Massachusetts. So.
We have a question over here.
Yes.
Dave, I'd like to ask about the closure of Neshoba Hospital, which is a very important employer, if not just a healthcare resource, which is sorely needed in north central Massachusetts. I keep hearing from our congressional delegation to Boston that there's nothing they can do about it. It's a financial situation that the hospital has made. Do you believe that's true, and what could be done about it?
Well, legalities, I don't know what could be done today about it, but I can tell you that with the little bit of information that I have, that this has been a problem created by the legislatures. Paying pennies on the dollar, forcing hospitals to take 10 cents on the dollar, and being required to take all of this state-funded and federally funded health insurance. I think that that's put these places in a position of not being able to remain profitable. I would say that there's something can always be done if it's important enough for somebody, and it doesn't seem like saving that hospital is important enough for the people in Boston right now, where they're not going to make it a priority, because they're talking about taking the other hospital by eminent domain, and they're working hard to solve all the other problems, but this one seems to be forgotten by the side, and our current legislatures are not standing up and screaming loud enough for it.
It's really bad in my opinion, because anybody living here, you're talking a half-hour ride to the hospital.
Yeah, I fell down and broke a rib the other day. I needed to go from urgent care to the hospital, and I definitely chose to drive from Leominster out to Emerson, because I did not want to wait in line at Leominster.
No, I'm talking about physically getting from your house here to the nearest emergency room.
Yeah.
Where
Absolutely.
it might not just be just a broken
What I had
bone.
was minor, but if somebody had a major injury, that's a big concern.
One last question.
Well, with the closing of the labor and delivery in Leominster, my daughter's friend had a baby in Gardner, had to drive to Concord. You don't want to be driving that when you're in labor, or if there was a complication.
Route
So
2.
closing Neshoba is a problem.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, you would think that there's a big enough population in the Twin Cities to be able to cover that.
Okay.
Yes, that's it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you very much. It's not easy running for office. I ran in 2018, and I know what these Kansans are going through. It's tough, especially for the door knockers. You might lose a few pounds and lose a few shoes too, because it's a lot of work. And I applaud everyone for being here. Okay, our next speaker is Andrew Kuchar. He's running for Governor's Council. Please welcome Andrew Kuchar.
Thank you, Kathy. And I would like to thank Mr. Fitzgerald for this beautiful having us here at his beautiful house and his beautiful property. So yes, I am Andrew Kuchar. I am running for Governor's Council here in the 7th District. You might know me. A lot of you may know me. Some of you might not. I am an attorney. I have an office in Leominster. I am also a Fitchburg City Councilor, Ward 3. I'm very proud of that. And I've gotten a lot of questions from some of my constituents in Fitchburg. Does that mean you're giving up the Ward 3 City Councilor? No. I can do this. I can do the Governor's Council as well as do my City Council. Now, as an attorney, I have been in almost every courthouse from Boston all the way out to Springfield. I am in the trenches. I see good judges, and I see a lot of terrible judges. Now, as Governor's Council, one problem that I have is people don't know what the whole business is all about. What does the Governor's Council do? They vote on the judges. Does anybody know how many Republican Governor's Council that we currently have?
Zero.
Absolutely none. Can you talk about a carte blanche? Go ahead and appoint whatever left-wing wingnut that you want to appoint to our governor. That's what's happening. And in fact, when she first appointed her ex-wife to the Supreme Judicial Court, without one negative comment throughout the entire Governor's Council, that's when I said I have to step in. because that is nepotism at its best. Now, I do challenge the Commonwealth. In 2020, I sued Governor Baker for shutting down the gun stores, and we forced them back open. I'm also currently working with Gun Owners Action League, as well as Gun Owners of America, to sue for $48.85. That's what we're currently working on right now. Because unfortunately, we cannot trust the judiciary in Massachusetts to make a stand against the anti-gun left here in Massachusetts. I have not found one judge with the testicular fortitude to utilize Bruin to say what Massachusetts is doing is unconstitutional. And it will be one of my jobs as Governor's Counsel to grill any potential appointee about the importance of the Second Amendment and the importance of Bruin, because not too many people understand it.
Explain what Bruin is.
Bruin was a Supreme Court decision that came down about 2 years ago. In New York, you have to have a special reason, number one, to have a gun license. Number two, if you do get that permission to get that gun license, the only way that you'd be able to carry that gun out of your house was to go to a predetermined range set by New York. Was determined to be unconstitutional. It goes further than that. It brings into question the suitability standard. Even if you have nothing on your record, you could still be denied a license because an arbitrary person, the chief of police, could determine you to be unsuitable for whatever reason whatsoever that she might think. Completely unconstitutional. And it's about time that we had some constitutional conservative judges that are sitting on our benches in order to be able to give a just and fair verdict. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, did you talk about probation and what your role is in the probationary department?
Yes, we also we vote on who gets to be.
Repeat the question, because I'm sure we didn't hear it. I'm sure we did not hear the question. Repeat the question, please, because we got hearing it.
Okay, so she's asking what is the role in probation and what and
The Governor's Council.
The Governor's Council. Well, we appoint who gets on the parole board. We appoint who is involved with probationary issues. We also vote on which judges get a raise. So anything involving the judiciary that the governor decides on, it comes before the Governor's Council first.
Four on the council?
8. 8 on the council. 8 for each district. We're in the 7th district. You go out to Western Mass, that's the 8th district. You go to the 6th district, that's Boston, Cambridge,
One for each district.
One Governor's Council for each district. Yes.
Is there a liaison, a community or liaison on that council as well?
I don't believe so.
No, okay, no.
Yes, sir.
Who's your opponent now? Do you have an opponent?
There is an opponent. It's the gentleman who is currently sitting in the seat, Paul DiPaolo. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Do you support Trump?
100%. No question. I voted for him in 2016. I voted for him in 2020, and I'll be voting for him again in 2024. No question about it. Anybody else? Oh, yes, go ahead.
I'm just curious, on the Governor's Council, whatever's decided by them, does the governor get to veto anything that they decide on, or is that?
I mean, the governor appoints the judges, and they get grilled by the Governor's Council, gets questioned and whatnot, and then the Governor's Council takes a vote. But she can get a veto if there's a majority on the Governor's Council that votes for it. and say she doesn't like that, I don't know why she would appoint somebody whom she didn't like, but if it's reversed in the governor's council, she could veto. I want to be there in order to be able to get my opposition heard, in order for these judges to understand that Massachusetts does have a conservative point of view, and we really need to get a conservative on there in order to bring out these issues. But yes, thank you for the question. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
How can we donate money to you?
Well, committee to elect Andrew Kuchar. I could take a check today. Unfortunately, my treasurer, my treasurer couldn't make it here today. But my office is my campaign headquarters, 77 Merriam Ave in Leominster. And but I could also take a check today. But I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that question. Anybody else? Yes.
Well, tell them that the website is still coming.
Okay, yes. Mr. Shuford brought to my attention that I was having website issues. I contacted my website guy. He's an old high school friend. He lives up in New Hampshire. When I called him to say, hey, I am having website issues, what's going on? He was crabbing down in South Carolina for a month. So I said, well, as soon as you get back, can you please take care of this website issue? And it should be resolved by Monday. So you could also go to Andrew Kuchar for govcouncil.com, and a button to donate there would work too.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. I definitely appreciate your ears and your applause.
Bravo. I'm glad you brought up the money thing, because this is a great opportunity to give the candidates that you like a check today. It's easy. You don't have to go home. You have to look it up on the website. Just give them a check. They're all looking for your support. In this state, you have to work doubly or triply harder to get into office against the Democrats. So just keep that in mind. They're here with literature, and they're here to answer any of your questions. Our next candidate is Lynn Archambault. She is running for state representative. Please welcome Lynn.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Kathy, for organizing this, and Paul for hosting this. This is a great opportunity to meet the candidates. I'm Lynn Archambault, running for state representative in 1st Middlesex District. That's Groton, Dunstable, Pepperell, Townsend, Ashby, Lunenburg. So 6 towns. And I know a lot of you are from there or surrounding. I am a longtime business owner in Pepperell, a lifelong resident of Pepperell. And I'm a teacher at North Middlesex High School. I teach high school students. So right there, I think I should get some credit. That's a tough job. But also, most importantly, I'm a mom, and next week, I'm going to be a first-time grandmother. And I'm very excited. Very exciting. I am running because our state is unaffordable for my kids to live in and my grandchildren. I want them to be able to enjoy our beautiful state of Massachusetts that I lived in my whole life. So right now, many of you have had to have overrides. I know every town in 1st Middlesex District had to have an override vote, and many surrounding, like Westford, I know. That's awesome. I know. A couple towns weren't able to defeat it, which is disappointing. But that right there is showing that Boston politicians are not funding our district and our community. The state of Massachusetts has a lot of money, but they are not funding us. My opponent, with all the overrides going on, voted a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago, instead of giving $35 million, which was put before the House to take from prisoners for free phone calls, to give to local communities like ours who are struggling with our budget crunches, she voted it down and decided to give it to prisoners instead of our students. In fact, my opponent, I think, likes criminals, because she just voted a couple weeks ago to give criminals free bail. Not free bail, I shouldn't say free, because guess who's paying for the bail? We are. So they doubled the fees for our bail, for criminals' bail, but the taxpayers have to pay for it because criminals can't afford it. Okay? So I am working to make Massachusetts more affordable. My opponent has no problem voting in $1 billion for illegal immigrants to live in our state. Our right to shelter laws, like Nick said, have to change, and I will fight to do that. Yes. Why? Why should someone who's here illegally make more money each month than my mom on Social Security? It's just not right. It's not right. So we need to do better. Veterans, we still have homeless veterans in our state. My opponent, when put before the House that veterans should get first priority for housing, she voted it down. How can you vote that down? My opponent will tell us one thing, that she's supporting veterans, that she's supporting our schools, but her votes say otherwise. She was on a committee to work on an amendment for our busing, which causes a lot of problems in regional schools. Our North Middlesex can't afford our busing fees. It's terrifying. And Margaret said she was going to work on that. But when it came to the House, she sat silently, never brought it to a vote, let it die, never brought it to debate, never spoke on it. We need more transparency as to what's going on in our legislature. What are they voting on? What votes are they taking? Why is it so hard for residents to go in and find out how one of their reps voted? So I will fight for more transparency. So I appreciate you. You all here today. Please feel free to take one of my signs, post it proudly in your yard. We need to speak up. We need to stand up. If you would like to check out my website, it's vote4, that's the number 4, Lynn, LYNNE.com, voteforlynn.com. You can check that out. You can donate right there. I also have QR codes to scan over there and literature over there. And please get the word out. I want to end on one final thing. The Democrats in our state are activists. And I applaud all of you for being knowledgeable and seeking out information and coming here today to seek out information and to stand up for what we know is right in our state, to provide more balance in Massachusetts. But we need to be brave and stand up and get more people to do the same. Yeah. We have strength in numbers. And with that, thank you so much. Questions?
Do you support President Trump?
This will be the 3rd time I vote for President Trump.
You were talking about transparency. Are you aware that the State House is not under the public record law? And would you want them and their committee meetings to be under a public record law?
Absolutely, I do know that, and yes, I do believe that. They need to be under, we need to know what's going on.
Yeah. How many cities in the state of Massachusetts are sanctuary cities, or is the entire state sanctuary?
The entire state of Massachusetts is a sanctuary state. It's the only state in the country that's a sanctuary state. There are other sanctuary cities in the country, but we're the only sanctuary state.
Am I to understand that that's also unconstitutional?
There's something to be proud of.
It's against the law.
Yeah. To be a sanctuary, yes.
How does
I mean,
that get challenged?
what's that?
How does that get challenged?
We need to have people getting there and challenging it. And if I'm in, I will challenge that. I will get with the other people who have concerns, and there are people that have concerns. We need numbers.
You have a thing where you can put your email so you can send out all the invitations?
I have over on my table over there, I do have a list. You can put your email address and you can get on my, yes, that'd be great. You can fill that out, absolutely.
Are there any debates between you and Margaret? Because I'd like to see how she defends that record.
We actually are having a debate. We both agreed to it, a date to be determined. I will get that information out. Paul's really good about sending that out. I'll get that out as much as I can when we finalize that date. I think it's going to be after the primary.
Eileen, Groton is a split district, and I'm in First, Middlesex, and Worcester, so we can't even vote for you. So what's your district again for the other side of Groton?
Right, so it's Groton. So what's your district?
First, Middlesex, and Worcester.
In Worcester, so it's First, Middlesex, so it's everything but West Groton. So if you have to vote at
I'm not in West Groton.
there's a small like section behind Main Street. It's so weird. Yeah, I have it listed.
So your district is First Middlesex.
First Middlesex.
Groton is split.
Groton is split, which is unfortunate. Most of it is in First Middlesex, but there's a couple pockets that are not, unfortunately.
Do you know where the illegals that we're housing are getting their health care? I mean, that may be something that's valuable to you in your debate, that if they're getting transportation to Mass General and Brigham and Women's because of a Laura Haley contract,
right,
and your local people can't even go to Neshoba because it's closed.
Mike, that's a good point, and yes, one worth looking into. Another great point, and Nick brought this up. We, in our district and in the surrounding districts, we're slipping through the cracks. Boston politicians don't care that Neshoba's closing. They don't care. They don't even mention it in the Boston Herald. They talk about Kearney, but not Neshoba. It's just wrong. But yes, where are they? And a lot of people have voiced concerns, and I have the same. Is Maura Healey ignoring Neshoba because she has other plans? Is she going to put illegal immigrants housing there? It's possible. It's something that we can't be outraged. We can be outraged, but our representatives, our senators, they should have been working on this months ago when the warning came down. They should have had data, spreadsheets. This is what's going to happen. This is how many people could die. This is how many emergencies we deal with. So, yeah, we should have been doing this months ago, but we didn't. We're waiting until the shoe dropped, unfortunately.
We have time for one more question, or is there another? Okay, two questions.
Was there another question?
There's two questions, one here and then one there.
Who's running against? I'm sorry, you probably don't know, but First, Middlesex, and Worcester, I should know who our state rep is. So could you?
So I'm running against Margaret Scarsdale, and your rep is yeah, Sena.
He's running unopposed.
Unopposed.
And one over here.
Yeah, it wasn't really a question. I was just going to mention that I looked it up. Massachusetts does not have sanctuary state laws on the book, and we have 8 sanctuary cities.
It's executive order. We are a right to shelter state.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
By executive order.
We are right to
President Law.
shelter state.
You good?
Okay. Thank you so much.
Give a hand to Ray. And good job. And it's really great to see everyone here listening to these candidates. And from here on, we're going to give this to Mark Wadanza, the Worcester and Middlesex District State Committee man. There's a State Committee man and woman elected from each district. So take it away.
Thank you, Kathy. And thank you, Kathy, for all your hard work in organizing this. I'd also like to thank, of course, the Fitzgeralds for their efforts in creating this today. I'd also like to recognize my wife, Adele, who's here, who gives me the opportunity to do these things. And I'd also like to lastly recognize my good friend, longtime friend, Peter Angelini, who is my ally on the Leominster City Council, also a good Republican that keeps the city of Leominster moving in the right direction. with some other Republicans that we have. We're now going to shift gears a little bit. The second half of this program is going to be different than the first half. Here we have Republicans running against each other. And I'd like to say that when I ran for this job back in March, I had an opponent in March, and that was Dennis Galvin. And honestly, I've run for the city council in Leominster 6 times. I've never had an opponent. This March, I had the first occasion to have an opponent for elective office. And we had a good spirited campaign. And I want to tell you, when it was over the next day, Dennis called me and we had a great conversation. We laughed. We congratulated each other for a good campaign. And we are working together as Republicans to move the needle and get some of our people elected this November. So, and I know that the 3 men that are going to come up here and talk to you in a moment are going to do the same thing. They're all great candidates, and unfortunately only one of them is going to move on to the general election. But I firmly believe that the other 2 are going to work for our cause, and they're not going to go anywhere in the future. It's important that first and foremost we're Republicans and we're going to work together regardless of whether there's a primary or not. These are good people. They all are tremendous resumes. And by way of speaking order, the first gentleman that's going to speak to us is Bob Antonellis.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Paul. Yes, I've lived in the state of Massachusetts for over 40 years, so I'm local. I haven't lived up in beautiful Groton yet, but it sure is nice out here. My background, industrial engineering. I'm not a politician. This is my first shot. We know Washington is broken. We know that very much. And it's the lawyers, the lobbyists, the politicians, Elizabeth Warren, that broke it. And so what we need is more engineers in Washington, D.C. Yeah. And that's what I do plan to help deliver to this floor of the Senate. So the big issue, I'll save the question in the back. I am an America First candidate, and of course I support Donald Trump through and through. And I also want to talk to you, if there's time, about Massachusetts first. But the point of the matter is, I wanted to get right to tomorrow at 8:30. We had a debate on Thursday, recorded it, and it'll be on WBZ TV tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning, and that's the CBS News channel. And that's going to be a 15-minute version of the 30-minute debate. And it was a very active debate. We're going at each other pretty good, and it's worth listening to. And then once they showed that 15-minute, they will make the full 30 minutes available via. All right. Yay. Hey, let's just play the music. So, but what I wanted to point out was that the debate was all about the issue of, not all about, but it was primarily about me supporting Trump, and the reason why there was so much, well, call it rancor or whatever you want to call it, was between myself and the other 2 candidates, is that they specifically have stated on record that they will not vote for Donald Trump. And so the reason why, I mean, that's, you can get past, I mean, that's not something you can debate about for very long, but the part that was very interesting is the points that I raised was that when you talk about the America First plan, and you start basically cherry picking the terms, strong border, cut inflation, fight fentanyl, and then you don't support Trump, the one who has the plan, and instead you choose to not vote for anyone, which is, I'm still baffled by that kind of decision that they would not vote for either. That it seems contradictory, because if you want a strong border, why would you vote for the person Kamala Harris. It's implicitly you're voting for her when you do not vote for Trump. But so anyway, I wanted to just chat with you about, because you know what America First is, and I support that fully. But Massachusetts First is something I think we all really care very much, very deeply about Massachusetts. And that, of course, the first and foremost topic would be ending Massachusetts as a sanctuary state. And then continuing with, hopefully, President Trump to have a genuine mass deportation program, which I don't get very strong support from either of my candidate opponents on that plan, but I'm in strong favor of such a program, because that does solve all these issues about hospitals closing down and rec centers being taken over. Like every single one of them is literally a downstream of that. Now, as far as 2A, I'm a very strong proponent of the Second Amendment. And of the three candidates that are here today on the ballot, I'm the only one that got a grade of A from the Gun Owners of America. And maybe you can ask the other two why they got NR, which is no response. So I don't know. It's up to them why they didn't respond. But the point of the matter is, what I'm going to be calling for is, as your senator, is constitutional carry in all 50 states. And U.S. territories, and I say that because they're also covered by the Constitution. And I think our gun industry, our ammo industry could surely use the business of Puerto Rico and Guam and other places. I also want a major crackdown on ATF. I'm not saying eliminate the organization. I don't think you can do anything like that, eliminating such an organization that's so huge. Because it probably, when you get right down to it, it probably does a few things that are actually useful. At some point, if you look hard enough, you'll find it, I'm sure. But so they do not follow whatever the Supreme Court rules. They just do whatever they want to do. And so we need to get to the bottom of that. And we need to make sure that, if the Supreme Court rules it in its constitutional law, that they follow that law. So that's an issue. I also want to take the IRS out of the guns and ammo business, which is very dangerous and portends very bad things. Especially when you hear about Elizabeth Warren's new tax that she was bragging about on Jim Polito a couple of months ago. When what she said was that, there's a new tax coming, and if you have a nice dining room set, you'll pay a tax on that. So that tells me, I thought the audit was something that was a virtualization that could be done at your accountant's office, right? But now what, they got to come inside the house to look around and see what you got? So that's when I think why they need the 89,000 new agents, and that's why they need a lot of guns and ammos. So the last topic I want to talk about for the Massachusetts First is banning all offshore wind farms from all U.S. territorial waters, including, of course, absolutely Cape and Islands. And I've been talking about that for months now, and then shortly thereafter Donald Trump started talking about it, so I'm not saying it had anything to do with me. But I can tell you one thing, as an engineer, if you were to ask a mathematician how many of those blades are going to fall off into the ocean, does anybody know the answer? All of them. That's right, it's a mathematical certainty, because one by one they'll be abandoned, because these things are complex. They don't just miraculously turn. There's a lot of stuff going on, and when they stop, they're going to rust, degrade, and one by one they're going to drop. And every single one is like an atomic bomb that's going to go off, and it's going to turn the Atlantic Ocean, it's going to turn the beautiful oceans of the world and the Bay State into the Dead Sea. So I just gave you a little bit of an arc over what I stand for and what I'm going to do for you as your U.S. Senator. I do have one little thing to tell you. I'm getting a lot of requests now because of my big success on the Cooner Report. The debate was a big success. I got a lot of kudos from a lot of very, very happy 200 people on that event. And I've been getting all kinds of requests for yard signs. You know, what would you do if you had to get a yard sign up to Ludlow or to Pittsfield or Winchton? You know, it's not an easy task. So what I came up with is a plan to digitize it. And what I can do now, I'll show you my sign over there. What you can do is download the PDF and then take it straight to Staples, and for a cost of $9.38, you can get a 18 by 24 printed in 2 strips, laminated. So let's talk about that. That's on my website now. But so otherwise, speaking of donations, that was Paul. You know, that's fine if you went to my web. Oh, look at that. Yeah, so this is actually 2 11 by 22s, and you just laminate it, and so it combines together to $9. So I just took this old sign, and so a lot of people have lots of yard signs in their basement, and if you don't have one, you talk to somebody else, and they're like, oh, I got 10 of those from 2022 or something. So yeah, that's great. So you take that. So I appreciate any visits to my website. You can go to the bottom of the homepage to find where to download those PDFs, and I even have a guy that's going to be making a 3x5 foot to go over the Norwell Bridge and have the Trump sign, and my sign, huge, and so that people that are driving on Route 3 are like, Trump, Antonellis, oh, okay, that goes together good. So I want to make sure you get that message. Check out that show tomorrow at 8:30, and if you do want to make a donation, that's fine. I'll accept checks here today. I also have pre-addressed envelopes on my little desk there, and you can do by credit card on the so if you go to bob4ma.com, then you'll see the big blue button to donate by credit card. So thank you very much, and I do hope I have the opportunity to serve you. Oh yeah, questions.
I read recently that Social Security will have to start cutting benefits in 2032 because they're running out of money. Do you have a plan for that?
Well, I would work with the conservative caucus when I get to the U.S. Senate. I don't specifically have a plan to save Social Security, but I do know that Donald Trump talked about cutting taxes from Social Security benefits, because I know it was Bill Clinton was the one that imposed taxes on seniors with Social Security. So I mean that's definitely an issue. There's got to be a rethink on that taxation, and there has to be a closer look at that. Any other questions?
I'm just speaking about this. What do you feel you can do at the national level to protect the life of the unborn?
Well, at the national level, see, there's been some progress, and that is the May 2nd, well, that was the Dobbs leak. The decision to move, to basically banish Roe versus Wade, pass it on to the states. At the federal level, I suspect there is an opportunity there as well to protect the life of the unborn, because I do believe life begins at conception and not 6 weeks later, not certainly not 9 months later at birth. So no, there has to be definitely an effort, but the good news is it's going in the right direction, and the courts and I think the people's hearts are going in the right direction, particularly with this new capability to have to check the heartbeat and so forth. And so ask my opponents about that issue. Any other questions about for me?
One.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure there's a majority somewhere, Democrats. Right now, I'm pretty sure it's the least effective Congress we've ever had. And there's no negotiation. They disagree with each other, and that's the end of it. So, hypothetically, are you interested or able to negotiate with anybody on the opposite side of the spectrum? For anything bipartisan? Or is there anything that you feel they could say that would convince you for anything they go for?
I think I lost the second part of that question, but let me start with the first. I definitely can negotiate with anyone because I have an open mind, and I never make it personal. I always just keep it on the issue and talk specifics, and I think I can expose, hypocrisy. Like you're going to see a lot of hypocrisy in that. If you watch the debate tomorrow at 8:30, you're going to be like, oh wow, this Trump thing is a problem. Because like I just told you earlier, how can you say you're for fighting crime, stopping the border, against fentanyl? How could you not vote against a guy named Tampon Tim? And they are not going to vote against Tampon Tim. And I'm like, it's just weird. I don't know. Any other questions?
Yes. Perpetual wars.
Oh, God. I despise war. Donald Trump is a peacemonger, and that's one reason we love him. Because he builds. He's a builder. You know, the worst fear for a builder is that somebody's going to throw a bomb into their building the day they finish it. So he's been anti-war since birth. But so I'm dead set against this, and I also want to call out specifically John Deaton when it came to the debate Thursday that we did the show tomorrow, on the issue of the border bill. That I was against it. I called it a red herring. He was for it because he believed, his experience in law enforcement made him especially able to say, this is a good bill. Except as far as I remember, there's 80% of that spending was for the Ukraine. So, I mean, it's a disgrace. I'm against war, and I want to see, I will support Israel's right to defend itself, but I do believe, there's a way to get a permanent peace in the Middle East and do it without bombs and bullets, and no bombs or bullets. And because the fact of the matter is, the truth of the matter is, you can't fight your way to peace. That's a fact. So, any other questions? There was one left?
The whole Trump thing. We seem to be over-focusing, especially in Massachusetts, unless you really think he's going to take Massachusetts. Right now, we have no Republicans representing Lunenburg and a lot of the other towns. I mean, my feeling is we should be worried about getting state reps in office, state senators, and up from there. But we really need to get our state rep candidate and Senate candidate in office here. I see this Trump thing as a distraction, because I do. What is your opinion on is Trump going to help us get local people?
Well, if you listen to the applause that we just had, I think that's a clue. I think when somebody really loves Donald Trump, they are eager to do something, and what you need is people that will do something. And you're right, but I mean, we have a problem in the Mass GOP and so forth, a lot of fighting, and a lot of people on the Trump side would say a lot of rhinos on the other side, but whatever you call them, I think that you are right, and I think we need more organization. So what we need is more ability to come together and not be personal with each other, and be factual. And I wish I had gotten involved, anyway, a long time ago, systematically, and to bring together the group of like minds. This is a beginning, this is a start, and I think we need to continue that. Any other?
I'd like to ask you, what is your feeling about getting rid of the Department of Education on the federal level? And also, how do you feel about federal imposition of regulation on homeschooling?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I think that...
repeat it, please.
Can you
repeat it?
What do I think about the Department of Education and, did you say eliminating the Department of... Eliminating the Department of Education, and what about federal laws that are governing homeschooling? They will be governing homeschooling. Well, I do not like any governance, and I think the Department of Education is like one that I mentioned. You can't get rid of it, but I think you could probably cut out 99% of the Department of Education, and you'd be, saving a lot of money. Homeschooling, my sister's got his homeschool. She's got 4 kids that are enormously successful today. Big, beautiful, wonderful families. I think people need the autonomy to extend the family into, as the child goes on to learn. So it's an act of love for a family to educate and to bring all their wisdom. So yes, I think they have no place in it at all. And I'd like to see the virtual elimination of that organization in the Department of Education. Okay, any other questions?
One last one. No offense to anyone, but I feel like I'm probably one of the younger people here, 30. Hey, I'm not saying anything, but most people my age and younger, they see a Republican, they're not going to like you. I'm different, but other people, how are you going to convince young people?
Well, once I become the candidate, and I win on September the 3rd, that's just to remind you, that's the day after Labor Day. Don't miss it. Once I'm the candidate, I'm going to be outreaching to young people. I'm going to be shaking hands. I'm going to be talking to them, and they're going to say, like, this guy's like a normal person. Like, yeah, I'm not a politician. I'm just kind of like a regular guy. And I think I'm going to be able to reach out to them, and I think I'll be very successful. Okay, I'm going to get lots of help. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for the questions. It's good to express yourselves and get these questions answered. Again, I'm going to repeat. All three of the candidates can't win the primary in September, and I hope that we'll get behind whoever is successful in this important race. The next candidate to speak is Ian Kane.
Bravo!
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Kathy. I want to thank the Fitzgeralds for hosting this today and the multi-town RTCs for coming together. This is great community building. I had the opportunity to spend some time in Harvard with Kathy and a whole bunch of people. I'm sure people who were here today were there to talk about election integrity and voting laws, which is a very important discussion. So I've had a chance to introduce myself to a few of you, but my name is Ian Kane. I'm the only Massachusetts native in this race. I grew up in Quincy, Massachusetts, where I'm a fourth-generation resident. I went to the public schools there until I went to BC High in Dorchester. I graduated with a degree in political science from Boston College in 2004. Soon after, I pursued an MBA at Duke University in North Carolina in order to pursue a path in business. Professionally, I've worked in commercial real estate, I've worked in the energy business, I've worked in technology, and I've worked in telecom. And in 2015, after I came back from graduate school, I moved back to Quincy and saw an opportunity to serve my public, to serve Quincy. And I ran for public office, so I ran for the Quincy City Council and I won. So I'm now 5 times elected. I've been in the seat for 9 years, and I'm currently the Quincy City Council president, which is a position that's elected by my peers. So out of all the candidates, I'm the only person that has been elected to office that has served people, that has represented their interests to local government. And in local government, in Quincy especially, we've been focused on ushering our community into the future. We have done wholesale infrastructure, including not just paving the streets, but making sure we're doing the underlying water and sewer mains. We've been focused on economic diversification. We've welcomed a lot of the real estate development in Quincy that sort of have been absorbing the supply constraints from the greater Boston area. As you know, we're in a housing crisis. We need more units built so that the supply can grow and the prices can go down. And we've been doing that in Quincy for our residents. And also we've been focused on interesting and innovative projects. So we made a policy decision to make broadband or fiber optics a public good. So what we learned during COVID, even before that, is that people work from home, they school from home. Some people didn't have access to high-quality internet in order to continue education, which was very unfortunate. You heard anecdotally stories about people having to go to McDonald's parking lots to pick up Wi-Fi so that they could educate, and we think that that's wrong. So we want to enable our residents to have access to that. We've been developing a municipal fiber optic network to wire every home with fiber optics so that we can create a competitive marketplace that drives the price of internet down and then increases the service quality. So now we're running a race against Elizabeth Warren, okay? Who I don't think there's anyone here that likes Elizabeth Warren. She's one of the most entrenched members of the United States Senate. She basically is just a celebrity, or at least she wishes she was a better celebrity, but she's not even that cool. She's a person that can wave her hand in the air and say some type of big company and get you riled up, but she's not doing anything. She's out of touch with us. I don't think she's ever been in touch with us. She was kind of bestowed upon us in Massachusetts and told that we were going to, have a solution in her. And as soon as she came into office, she decided to run for president of the United States. And when she did that, not only did Massachusetts not want her, but the country didn't want her. She's also the most divisive and partisan member of Congress. This is a woman that isn't bringing people together. She's not trying to find that unifying thread of being American that we all are and bring us together, especially in a time of such bifurcation in our country. She's trying to make sure that Washington doesn't work. But at the end of the day, she's either incapable or unwilling to work collaboratively with people in Congress or to do anything for us, which is why she has to continue to exact her policy changes in places like the executive office because she can't get anything done in Congress. And then propose expanding the Supreme Court because the rules don't work out in her favor. This is a person that we need to displace, no matter who it is that represents us from the Republican Party. But from my side, I'm running to usher in the next generation of leadership. This is about youth. That was a great question. How do you connect with youth? I'm 42 years old. I understand youth. I sit in this cuspy place between young and older. And I said this in Harvard the other night. I really appreciate the interest and enthusiasm that all of you have here, but I see, arguably a couple of young people here. We need to be building for the future. People need to be given a vision. They need to be inspired. They need to know that we can help them to be more productive members of society, that they can have a fair shot at a job that can allow them to live somewhere that they want to live. There's a lot here. But this party is struggling in Massachusetts because there's no bench. We do need to help those lower level candidates to win these seats. And the party needs to become palatable. It needs to seem cool. It needs to seem like something that people want to participate in. It needs to be welcoming. And that's what I'm about. And some of the issues. I've been traveling the state since March-ish, talking to people. And the number one issue on people's minds, irrespective of their political party, is illegal immigration. Hands down. Massachusetts has now become a border state. And it's one thing when you're compassionate about a subject where people are coming from country of origin, they've had destitute lives, they come here for something better. But it's another when they're coming here illegally. The state has now taken on a financial and physical burden. The shelters are overrun. And now we can't afford them. And we're leaving our most vulnerable residents of Massachusetts and citizens of the United States behind. And that's not right. So I talked a little bit about infrastructure. That's another thing I'm going to focus on. We got to figure out comprehensive partnerships between state and local government with the federal level to make sure that we're making improvements along the way, and that's both physical and digital. And at the end of the day, we got to think about economic growth. We've got huge opportunities in the digital economy, not only for young people, for older people alike, but we've got to embrace that. My goal at the end of the day is to be your voice. As I said, I've been traveling around the state, meeting people at coffee shops. We've been doing Zoom calls, however we can get to the voter to understand what they want, to understand how they want to be represented, and to know that there's an open dialogue, because this is a partnership. This is not just you vetting me. I'm seeing who I can collaborate with here, because it takes all of us to make change. So I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself to you today, and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
So, do you know how much money a senator makes and a representative per year?
In Congress?
Yes.
What is it, like 175?
174,000.
Yeah.
So, I'll disagree a little bit. I think when Warren was first elected, she had good ideas until she ran for president. But when you make that kind of money, so how are you going to not let that money corrupt you?
175?
Yeah, because you got to plus that times 6 years as a Senate term. That's almost $1 million.
So I don't think the 175 would be the money that would corrupt me. I think that's like what you need to sort of live a life these days in the greater Boston area, right? So, but the money that corrupts is the external money. It's the interests, okay? So I'm coming from the local level where, yeah, you need money to spend and you need to raise money and spend money to run for local office, just like any of these seats. And, I think when the higher office you get, you need more money to build an organization. I mean, we've seen this in the Senate race. This is not a fly-by-night operation. Someone who is going to beat Elizabeth Warren, we need tens of millions of dollars at the end of the day, right? She's got a little bit in her account, but a lot more will be needed, and you need to draw in those interests, and you got to make compromises and partnerships to get there. But personally, I'm coming from the local place where I understand, implicitly how to represent people. And if I'm not doing this for the money thing. I'm doing this because I think I can do a job better than Elizabeth Warren or anyone else. So, we can try to get to know each other more, but all I can do is try to protect my integrity at the end of the day and make the right decisions.
Do you support President Trump?
Oh, I wish I was going to disappoint you either at the beginning or at the end, and I guess we're doing it here. So I am not voting for either presidential candidate.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, there's a third.
I'm not voting for that one either.
What are you voting for?
I'm not voting for a presidential candidate. I'm going to do a write-in.
So you're.
You, if I get your name, yeah.
So
Yeah,
even though President Trump and his daughter-in-law on the committee, RNC, and he's basically the leader of the RNC, you don't support the presidential
So I'm
candidate of the
focused on
RNC.
Massachusetts. That's my primary. I'm coming from Quincy. I'm looking at Massachusetts,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to figure out what's best for our state. And I'm going to take nothing away from all the Trump supporters here. I appreciate your allegiance and your interest and your enthusiasm in a candidate like that. We need more candidates like that people buy into. But I'm sorry, I'm not going to be a person that shares that level.
But you did express I thought that the stress on our infrastructure is a lot because of the right to shelter, sanctuary city idea. So what is your position on what to do about that? To build more infrastructure for more people to stay here, or to evict them who don't belong
I
here?
think those are two separate things.
Well, I'd say how would you handle that problem?
I'm happy to outline that now.
Yeah.
So a couple weeks ago, we just put out a piece that outlined the first 7 points that we would focus on if we're so fortunate to go to the U.S. Senate. And the first one is, which you've already heard, and it's a no-brainer, is pass a piece of legislation that makes sure that cities, towns, and states cannot designate themselves as a sanctuary status. Okay? That's our first one. Then you go into the abuses of the asylum designation. Then you go into making sure that employers can't employ illegal immigrants, implementing an E-Verify program across the country, and a host of others, making sure that we adjudicate the backlog of those at the border already, making sure we refine the laws to make sure that there are true pathways to legal immigration, and we're actually upholding the laws that exist, preventing people from coming over.
Isn't it already illegal to employ an illegal alien?
Of course.
Why is
doesn't
it being
stop people,
tolerated?
And that takes enforcement. So that's beefing up ICE. Let's take the 80,000 people we just put in the IRS and put them over in ICE, right? Why are we trying to audit more middle class? Why are we trying to continue to eradicate the middle class and take more from them when we could be actually solving the problem? All these things to me, including the issues in the state level, are smoke screens for the biggest issue that we got going on, right? We talked a little bit about this gun law that was just passed at the state level, which is ridiculous. We didn't need that. There's an accessory dwelling unit law that was just passed. Not many people are asking for that. But these, to me, are smoke screens for the biggest problem that we got going.
Well, they're trying to wipe out our country, sir.
So you can go to my website for more information and to make a contribution. I appreciate the question. It's Cain for Us. That's CAINFORUS.com.
Question.
Yes.
Do you support a federal balanced budget amendment, and if so, what would you cut to get us there?
Yeah. So I love the question about Department of Education. Been talking to a lot of people about that because that's a department that has about $800 billion flowing through it, and I bet not many people here can tell you what it's spent on. But some things are not going right in places like the Department of Ed. You know what it takes, because they haven't passed a budget. They've been operating under continuing resolution in the Congress, right, to make sure the funding measures continue to be funded. And it takes a group of courageous people. So the first thing you got to do is find out who's willing to make those hard decisions, not only to figure out how to pass a budget, but to make spending cuts.
Well, all the things you're saying sound really good, but they're going to be vetoed by a Harris administration and approved by a Trump administration. So how do you justify that?
I mean, I don't necessarily agree with you, because I can work with anyone. That's what I'm going to do, Yeah. So that's what I got to figure out. And if I'm not able to do that, then I'm ineffective, like an Elizabeth Warren, who sits one side, can't work with people, doesn't get things done. I mean, that's fine. You can doubt. You can doubt, but I got to go into this with a positive mind and an open mind. So.
How many Trumpers are here?
Pardon?
Oh, Janet, that's not a question for you.
I don't think so.
Do I?
Trumpers.
Oh, I mean, as I said, I mean, I wouldn't be here if I didn't want to figure out how to work with you. You know?
Are we too old?
No.
I thought we were the other night.
You're too old?
Well, apparently it was an age thing the other night at the integrity.
I said that at the beginning. I said a lot of people are older, and we need more young people. We do. Because what happens when the older generation goes away and you haven't brought in young people to fill in?
We're working on it, and we are doing it.
No, that's great. That's why we're here.
To say that is very insulting. You know, because we've been working, they have families, so we've been trying to work it.
I appreciate
think
that.
all of us here know that.
Thank you.
This gentleman.
My basic question, given your position, is the Democrats are unified more than carbon dioxide and rich concrete, which has double the strength. How can we defeat them if we don't have a unified team?
Right.
We haven't had a unified team since Reagan. Now, I'll say in front of everybody, I spent most of my adult life not liking Donald Trump. But he didn't get to the bottom of that escalator when I realized that was the one person that could defeat Hillary Clinton, and I knew how important that was. But if we have a splintered team, somebody once said that a house divided must fall. So how are we ever going to take them on? And with any serious success.
I've never said I'm divided. I'm not against you. We're on the same page. We want the same things. I think your mode is just different. And so I'm still coming at this from bottom up, because in Massachusetts, you still have a fractured 9% electorate Republican Party, right? You don't even have people in Massachusetts on the same page.
Right.
So why are we looking up there? So why are we looking up there?
We don't need another one.
Up at the national level.
You're asking to be part of the team.
I get that, but you got to start at home. We got to get our house in order, right?
You're not going to get a house in order being divided.
The whole reason there's a committee here today is because the former RTC didn't like Donald Trump and they dissolved the committee. And then some of us came together and reformed it. The committee fell into disrepair. Some, I heard, but I wasn't there. All I know is there was no committee. We had to reform the committee, and we did. And it's mostly because of Donald Trump that we even have a committee, is my point.
Sure.
The previous candidate mentioned that you didn't answer the survey about the Second Amendment. I'd like to know specifically what your policy is on the Second Amendment, especially in light of the Bruin decision's impact on state laws everywhere.
So my position on the Second Amendment is that, especially in Massachusetts, we were fine before this law just got into place. I'm a Second Amendment supporter, and I'd never received that the survey personally, so I don't even know where it was put out or distributed. But no, I've been campaigning across Massachusetts. Yeah.
Well, it's a hot issue in this state.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to take a look, more deeply at that, but I'm not, totally up to snuff on that.
One more question, then we're going to go to the last.
One there, we got one there. Maybe get two in.
Two, okay.
Loud.
Oh my goodness. It's more a statement than.
Speak up.
Speak up.
This is more a statement than a question. I agree with the gentleman that just stood up and asked you, how could you stand there and tell us you are for the Republican Party and then you come out and say, but you're not voting for the Republican Party?
Yeah, no, we had this conversation in person before you made the statement, so I mean, listen, we all have rights here, and I believe this is a group that respects rights. This is my right that I'm exerting, so I appreciate your respect to that.
Gentleman in the black shirt.
Hi. Getting off of that subject because I think we beat it to death. Do you support the MBTA Communities Act?
I'm actually on record against the MBTA Communities Act. We went through it in Quincy because we were fine with it. We went through a process, but A blanket zoning overlay for 177 cities and towns does not make sense. I participated in a panel discussion in Quincy with Commonwealth Beacon magazine, and I spoke extensively about it not being right to force all these. In fact, not only not being right to enforce this for 177 cities and towns, which have very different characteristics, desires, they probably weren't engaged in a public process, but there shouldn't be, they shouldn't be penalized for not complying. The towns that are actually complying should be, rewarded.
Ken Wood, last question. Blacksburg.
First of all, I thank you very, very much for answering these questions. You've done a wonderful job of being very patient with all of us, although some of us don't agree with you. And I thank you very much for that. My question is this. I look at this election as a watershed election. We're on the precipice of losing our country. And it depends upon who wins, whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats. If the Democrats win, we're heading down the road of communism, basically. And like, in my point, it's black and white. We have to support Trump, even if you don't agree with everything he says or does. And he did a good job for the 4 years he was in. We had no war, we had no inflation, so on and so forth. How can you say you won't vote for Trump when our nation is on the precipice of going under?
So let me just say this. I appreciate all of your perspectives. I'm not going to stand here and all of a sudden say I'm voting for Trump and make this better. That's not going to happen. And I don't think you'd want to hear that from me, because that would be disingenuous and that wouldn't be authentic, and that's not the person you want to send to office. So again, I can't speak more to that. I again respect all of your positions and your opinions, and I'm just thankful for the opportunity to come speak with you today. So thanks for having an open mind.
Thank you, Bob. I'm sure that there isn't a person here that supports Harris, right? Not one. Yeah.
Harris isn't eligible. She can't even be the president.
Well, that's a whole nother story.
Well,
right?
that's the law.
So here's the. Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but whoever they are, no one here is supporting that person. We've got a decision to make, but on September 4th, it all changes. And whoever the nominee is, this is Massachusetts, okay? We have to support that person because that's what's important. Anybody know what the registered independents are in the state?
50%.
Try 62%, okay? And that is an important thing to keep in mind. So whoever is the nominee for this party is going to have to appeal to that 64%. Otherwise, they're not going to get elected, okay? We don't live in a perfect world. Some of our Republican counterparts talk about the Constitution as being sacrosanct. How many people know that there are fundamental compromises in that Constitution, otherwise we wouldn't even have a country? How many people realize that without a 3/5 clause in the Constitution, we wouldn't have an America? Or if we didn't have a bicameral legislature, we wouldn't have an America. We can't always have everything the way we want it, but we certainly can work for Republicans. You go out to the polls and you vote who you want. You've got some choices here to make. And I don't blame you for making the choice that you want to make. But listen to everybody. At the end of the day, whoever wins this race, let's support him. And before I'm done, the last candidate is, of course, John Deaton.
Yay, John!
Thank you. All right, so some of you here know my story. Some of you have actually read the book that I wrote. I'm John Deaton. I'm a very unique candidate. I come from extreme poverty, single mother on welfare. In my announcement video, I admit that I was called white trash, right? Single mother on welfare, 6 children, 4 different fathers, abandoned father left us there to rot. Look up Highland Park, Detroit. You will see one of the top 5 worst neighborhoods to live in this country for the last 40 years. To put it in perspective, I watched my mom get stabbed at 6 years old. For 2 years between 9/11, I was a victim of a child rapist who did unspeakable things to me. My first day of high school, I had a .38 shoved in my mouth and the hammer cocked. So the next day, I was a high school dropout, just like every single person before me. All 4 siblings before me all first cousins before me. And my mother caught me crying. And she said to me, son, why are you so upset? I said, Mom, I want to go to college. I need to graduate high school. She said, just do what Toby did. Toby's my older brother, one of them. Work till you're 17, I'll sign the papers, and you join and enlist in the Air Force like him, or the Army, or the Marine Corps, or the Navy. And I said, Mom, I don't want to do that. I want to graduate high school. I want to go to college. And my mother, who is my absolute hero, born into intergenerational poverty, with a 6th grade education, put her arms around me and said, son, I'm sorry, but that's not for people like us. That's what poverty does to people. Strips you of your ambition, your self-esteem, handcuffs your mind and the human spirit. And at that age, at that day, at 14, I said, I'm going to break this cycle. And if I have children one day, I won't be a deadbeat dad. I'll be a great father. And at 14 years old, I started 18-hour days. And I found a tiny Catholic high school in the suburbs out of Detroit, Royal Oak of St. Mary's. And God bless a man named Terry Urquhart, the principal, who took pity on me, but he made me earn it. He said, son, the tuition here is $1,400 a year. That was like 14 grand to me. What I'll do is I'll cut the tuition in half to $700. But you will play 2 sports, you will maintain a 3.5 grade point average, and you'll be active in the church. In other words, he knew to keep me off the streets. And so I did it, and I started after football, basketball practice. I washed dishes, I waited tables, and I getting up at 5:30 in the morning until 1 o'clock in the morning. And I write about in the book walking down the streets in the worst neighborhood in America, doing all kinds of things to survive. And I made it through high school. And I went to Eastern Michigan University, and I made it through there, and I worked my way through. I took 2 years off college. I drove a forklift during the day. I waited tables at night to save up because I wanted out of Detroit. And I wanted to come to Boston. And I will tell you right now, I had no connection to Boston or Massachusetts except for one thing. Even in Detroit during the bad boy Pistons era, I was a Larry Bird fan through and through. And I was going to come to Boston. And I was broken hearted because I checked in 3 days later. He retired in 1992, and I still believe the 86 Celtics are the greatest team ever. But anyways, I digress. So make it to Boston, New England School of Law, and it hit me after my second year. I'm going to be a licensed attorney. I'm supposed to be dead. I'm supposed to be in prison. I'm supposed to be a crackhead, and I'm going to be a licensed attorney. I am the American dream. And I did something that surprised me. I decided to go in as an officer in the greatest fighting force known to man, the United States Marine Corps, and something I'm extremely proud of. I couldn't afford Harvard, and I'll be honest with everyone here, I probably couldn't have got in. But I beat out Harvard law, BC law, BU law, Suffolk law, Western New England law, Northeastern law. And the Marine Corps chose me to represent the Commonwealth in the 1994 Judge Advocate Law contract. And I did that. And I joined the Marines. And in the Marines, there's a picture in the Boston Herald. I was the chief prosecutor for the base, special assistant United States attorney. I was fighting drug trafficking in Yuma, Arizona, in the Yuma Crossing in the 90s. There's a picture of me in my camouflage uniform. I'm at active duty. And there's heroin and marijuana packets in front of me. The cartels were using young Marines as mules to bring drugs. I was fighting that in the 90s. And I got out of the Marine Corps. I got hurt, not in combat, but in training. And the Marine Corps retired me. I had a couple spinal surgeries. And I've been a licensed attorney in Massachusetts for 22 years, fighting corporations and insurance companies on behalf of mesothelioma and lung cancer victims. Just to put in perspective of the comparison and why Elizabeth Warren's talking so much about me. She too was involved in asbestos litigation. Guess who her client was? Travelers Insurance. Guess who I've been fighting for 22 years on behalf of real victims? Travelers Insurance. So I'm looking forward to that comparison to who actually represents the little guy. So I've been doing that. Whether it's power plants like Canal Electric on the Cape, or the GE plant in Pittsfield, all across the Commonwealth, I've been representing, just so you know I'm talking about plumbers, pipe fitters, service members, sailors, engineers, electricians, auto mechanics, roofers, floor installers, dental hygienists, nurses, truck drivers, bus drivers. Those are my clients for 22 years. No one has that kind of experience sitting at the kitchen table. They don't come to me, they're dying of cancer or they're dead. I'm going to their kitchen table talking to them about that. And so that's what I've been doing. Now I got in this race because I am the walking, living embodiment of the American dream and everything capable in a great country, and I don't recognize that country. And so I decided, I saw a poll that showed former Republican Governor Charlie Baker, if he were running against Elizabeth Warren, he would crush her by 15 points. It's not even close. So I reached out and said, listen, Senator Warren's trying to ban Bitcoin. By the way, I sued the United States government on behalf of token holders, including 627 here in Massachusetts. 75,000 joined me. I did it pro bono, and I won against the United States government on behalf of them. And I became known for that. So I called and said, I'll help Governor Baker if he runs against Warren. I'll do his crypto platform for free. I'm not looking for anything. I just can't stand this gaslighting person anymore. And John, Governor Baker's not running. Governor Baker told me he's not running. So I said, well, I might run. Sent my book, said, hey, read this. My book admits to a lot of things. I pushed down all that trauma. I didn't tell anyone I was raped for a child for 40 years. My ex-wife didn't know. By the way, my ex-wife threw me a fundraiser about a month ago. All right, my ex-wife didn't know. My mother died not knowing. No one knew. And I pushed it down. And I started waking up at 3 in the morning crying. I'm like, wow, I'm a millionaire now. I am the American dream. I'm a great father to my daughters. Great. Why am I crying? Why am I worried about that? That happened to me when I was 9 and 11. Why are you letting it bother you 40 years later, John? My best friend died in my arms at 17 in a drive-by shooting. He died in my arms, and I'm waking up, and the blood's all over me, and I'm crying uncontrollably. And so I started acting out, trying to, my pain pills. I started self-medicating. I write about all that in the book because I didn't deal with that trauma. So my book is about unexamined trauma, how it can sneak up on you when you least expect it. And so I talked to my daughters and I said, listen, I'm thinking of running, girls. And this is what sealed it for me. My 5-year-old said, go for it, Daddy. But my 24 and my 22-year-old, I said, listen, girls, I'm thinking of running for office for the first time. And girls, I'm not going to start off small. I'm going against arguably the most entrenched Washington elite insider there is, and Elizabeth Warren. And everybody's going to say, I can't win. And I can't win with Donald Trump on the ticket in Massachusetts. And I can't win because I'm a Republican, blah, blah, blah. They're going to come after me, girls. And my girls looked at me and said, Dad, you're great at everything you do, but we think you're going to lose. All right? Leave it to your kids to keep it real. I told you I had a great relationship with my daughters. And I looked at them and I said, why do you think Dad's going to lose? And they said, Dad, you're too honest. You will never say something you don't believe in, and you are incapable of selling out. And I said, you just convinced me to run. Because that can't be the standard in this country. It can't be the standard. I didn't wear a uniform. I didn't give my back, literally, for 7.5 years for that to be the standard. And so I got in the race. And Elizabeth Warren on day 1 started talking about me. My campaign said, she's going to ignore you, John. She's going to ignore you until after the primary. Day 1. You know what she said about me? The MAGA extremist Republicans have recruited John Deaton to run against me. Right? Even though I was critical of President Trump in the past. Right? And all you know that, and I'm going to get to it, don't worry, about that I'm not voting for Trump. And Fox Business did a segment on Liz Clayman's show. Why is Elizabeth Warren so scared of John Deaton? All right? Now, and some of you got it in the mail. I got in the mail on Friday. I got a postcard about this big. It said, meet candidate John Deaton. I didn't do it. Some of you got that postcard. A super PAC was created. I got nothing to do with it. I don't even know who runs it. Inspired by this candidacy because they know I can beat Elizabeth Warren with that 64% independents here. And so they know I can win, and that's why you see commercials. I had a friend on the Cape text me, great commercials, John. I call it the campaign. How do we do a commercial? I don't know anything about it. They're like, that's not us, John. That's the super PAC that was created to support you. So, and they've raised a couple $1 million because they know it can be done, right? She can lose. And so, listen, this country is, I said I don't recognize the country. I put on the news and I saw in Michigan an elected member of Congress with people born here and people who came here saying death to America. I don't recognize this country and I fear for it. You know, my motto in my personal life has been no fear and never give up. Personally, I have no fear, except I'm scared for my daughters, my 5-year-old, my 24-year-old, my 22-year-old. I'm 57 years old. What's this country going to look like if we continue down this path? That's why I'm in this race. I put $1 million in my own money in this race. Build the infrastructure to have the team to win because I've committed. And I want you to answer that gentleman's question back there. I'm not just doing it for myself. I have an agreement with the National Republican Party. I've sat at breakfast with Senator Daines, who's leading the Republican Senate Committee. I have a joint fundraising agreement with the Republican Party, right, led by Donald Trump. I have a victory fund. I'm the only candidate to have it. A victory fund does not benefit John Deaton. Benefits candidates running for state legislature. I hope to have 40 to 41 offices after the primary that will help people, Kelly Dooner or Paul Frost or anyone else running. Why am I doing that? I don't benefit from that. That money I'm helping raise other candidates to stop this one-party rule, to make progress in this state. That we can't just have, like the Second Amendment thing, they can't just walk up one day and say, guess what, today we're going to take off mother and father off birth certificates. That's what we're going to do today. And have no debate. Or pass a gun law that's so vague that gun shops don't know what guns classify under this expansion. All right? We have to do something about that, and that's why I'm committed. Listen, we are in scary times. There are people in this audience, I won't highlight them, who are not voting for Donald Trump, and there's a lot of you voting for him. The division in this country is killing us. It is destroying the country from the inside out. We have a $35 trillion deficit. The question was asked about Social Security. Do you know that Social Security is the #1 payment in this country for benefits? Do you know what's next? Interest on our debt. We pay over $1 trillion a year on our interest. It's more than our national defense. The question was asked about spending. Do you know if we cut every single dollar in discretionary spending, every single dollar, we still don't do enough? We can't tax enough. There's not enough to tax. You can't tax your way out of it. You can't cut it. You just keep mandatory spending, which is military retirements and pensions, Social Security and Medicare, national defense, and you have nothing else. We're still at a deficit. $6.3 trillion being spent, 4.9 in revenue. We're going off a cliff, and everybody's fighting and pointing the fingers. Oh, he's a rhino. Oh, no, he's MAGA. He's a rhino. He's MAGA. It's nonsense. We got to come together. Now, I'm not your perfect candidate. I get it. I've got people who are devout Trump voters knocking on doors for me, who look me in the face and say, John, I disagree with your decision on Trump. And I say, you know what? If I carried every Republican voter in this state with the greatest enthusiasm, I get 8%. Elizabeth Warren had 55% of independents in 2018. My campaign did some polling. She's at 33%. She lost 22 points off independents who represent 64% of the state.
That's great.
This race is winnable. Winnable. And so I understand some of you say, Trump's a red line, John. If you don't support Trump, I don't support you. I still respect you. I was on, let me tell you what happened. Sometimes I feel like the candidate that nobody wants, but the candidate that everybody needs. I was asked a question. John, you're a lawyer, you're a federal prosecutor. What do you think about that New York case against Trump and the criminal case? I go, it's nonsense. It's 2 misdemeanors. Hillary Clinton's campaign literally was fined $113,000 for the Russian dossier being called legal expense. Donald Trump had a non-disclosure agreement and called it legal offense. It's the same thing. It's nonsense. It's BS. I got yelled at. You're a disgrace, John, for supporting Trump. John, you just support him, and then I go into an RTC and I get called a disgrace because I'm not supporting him. We've got to stop it. I understand it. I'm looking you in the face and telling you, you don't have to vote for me in this primary if that's your red line. But I can beat her. I can tell you that. I can beat her. All right? And it's okay, but I would ask you, I'm not running against Donald Trump. If I was, I would lose. Just like DeSantis lost. Just like Nikki Haley lost. I'm running against her ultimately. If it's me, if I have the honor and privilege to represent you as your nominee, if I get that honor, and it's an if, I promise you, compared to her, I'm going to win. If you have one conservative bone in your body, I have to win that comparison because, I honestly am offended by her views. I wouldn't walk across the street to take a picture with Elizabeth Warren. I wouldn't. You want to know why? Because it would not be an honor to me. Your policies are destroying what I am, the American dream. Can a kid from Springfield, Roxbury, or Mattapan, or Brockton, could they do what I did if they were given a choice, an opportunity, and willing to work for it? I don't know. So I'm going because I told my daughters, before I die, I got 20 years if I live the average age of a man. That's all I got. I'm 57. And I am scared to death what this country is going to look like. So I plan to go to the United States Senate and fight. And I have one test. If it's good for Massachusetts and America and Donald Trump is the president, I'll be the best fighter he's ever seen for that. Put his name in capital letters, extra font size, and bold. I don't care. If it's not good for Massachusetts and America, I won't. And I don't care who the president is. I have loyalty to you, the voters. Not a party, not an agenda, not a person. And I'm going to stand by that. I know it disappoints you, but I'll take any question you got. Yes, ma'am.
All right, I have a question. I appreciate you running because I personally know it's not easy and it must be even worse in your situation. My question is it Donald Trump's personality or is it his policies that you're against? Because I think all of us can agree his policies were good for this country. So is it his personality, or are you saying you're not voting for him to get that middle ground?
No, listen, I was, when Donald Trump first announced, I was all in. On paper, billionaire, businessman, no special interest connection, loyalty. It was the best thing I've ever seen on paper. When he started saying, as someone who served in the Marine Corps, when he started saying you're not a hero because you got caught, and you might not like John McCain, but if you learn his story, the man was tortured, couldn't lift his arms, was allowed to leave 5 years earlier, but he wouldn't do it unless the people got captured before. Then I started tuning it out. But here's the thing. If half the country thinks you should be in jail, even if they're wrong, you're not gonna lead. You can't lead the country. It's gonna be more years of chaos. We are going off a cliff. So on immigration, I went to the border. I remember I was in Yuma. I was fighting border stuff in the 90s. It's the worst thing I've ever imagined. I went on Howie Carr, and I told the world, I said, I don't care if you're Republican or a Democrat. You go there and witness what I did. You're gonna say this is intentional. This is intentional. They can stop this. They're giving asylum court dates of 2032, 2033. 15 countries have been coming through their people that represent, that sponsor terrorism. In the Yuma crossing, the border security supervisor told me they caught 100 people on the terrorist watch list. And they said, John, that's who we caught. I go, how many do you suspect got away? He goes, 4 or 5 times that. That's 500. I went on At Issue, and the liberal host said, well, at least you're not demonizing the migrants. And I said, let me tell you something. It comes down to math. Math. 12 million is the actual number when you count getaways in 3.5 years.
20.
All right? I'm just telling you what Border Security told me was 12 million. So let's assume, what I told the lady was, let's assume 99% are good people longing for a better life. I know what that's like. 1%, if only 1 out of 100 is a bad guy, that's 120,000 bad guys. God forbid John Deaton's assumption's wrong, and it's 95% that are good, and 5% are bad. That's 600,000. It's a national security risk. So, border security, no foreign wars, all of those things, I'm in line. You know what I mean? But I just think that Donald Trump is part of the division and the name calling and all that. When President Trump, I'll get to you, sir, real quick. When President Trump almost got killed, assassinated, murdered, I didn't sleep that night. I literally, how could you not be in solidarity? The fist under the flag with the blood coming down. Listen, I'm a Marine. The only thing I could think of is Iwo Jima as an iconic kind of flag raising. And I was like, oh my God, like if he turns positive, he just turns to unite. If he turns to unite, we got this, we could do this. And then it's back to the name calling and are you black, are you Asian, and all the nonsense. And that's how I feel. So I'm answering your question honestly. That's how I feel. So I'm taking a statement and saying that the division is killing this country, and I want to go help Massachusetts and have that one test. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so you mentioned earlier when you were talking about a political action committee or group that came forth with $1 million. Did you not say that earlier?
I said not mine. I said
I got that.
an independent group.
An independent group.
Yep.
And you said that you didn't know anything about where this money was coming from. That this group was backing or supporting you, correct?
Yeah.
All right. Since that point in time, I was in your shoes. I'd want to find out where that money's coming from.
Well, it's public. I know where it's coming from. It's public.
Can you enlighten us and tell us where that's coming from?
Sure. A company. Well, this is public information. A company called RIP. Remember, I said I sued the SEC on behalf of XRP token holders. I did it pro bono. I had nothing to do with this company. The judge, a lifelong Democrat appointed by Barack Obama, agreed with me. Cited my legal work, all done for free. That work helped crypto. This crypto company, because she's trying to put them out of business, said, well, shit, Deaton did like millions of dollars in fees for us for free. I'm assuming, let's give him some money. And then the Winklevoss twins each added 500 grand.
Okay, so it was the crypto company that actually
Yes.
came out and supported.
So it was crypto, and she's earned this because she's trying to ban it. And so they're trying to fight her.
I didn't have the connection between
Okay.
the crypto company and the money that came through.
Right. But let me tell you this. People ask me, am I a pro-crypto candidate? And I say, no, I'm a pro-freedom candidate. I actually call Elizabeth Warren the crypto candidate because when she re-announced her re-election for the third term, she said she's going to build an anti-crypto army, and she was focusing on Bitcoin. And I'm shaking my head, scratching my head, and I'm saying, illegal immigration is so far out of control, they're asking us to open our homes to these people, unknown, undocumented people from around the world. We've got a debt crisis, $500. People don't have $500 set aside in case of emergency, almost 40% of Americans. We have inflation, housing crisis, we have foreign wars, we have opioid addiction, all this going on, and you're focused on crypto? That's not what people are focused on in Massachusetts. And so I think I'm going to be able to use that against her effectively. Yes, ma'am.
What will you do to ensure people's civil liberties and medical and bodily autonomy if another new virus starts circulating?
Well, listen, I'm against anything when you start talking about bans and mandatory shutdowns and all that. I'm a pro-freedom candidate. I believe in self-determination. That's why I'm here today talking to you. And so I'm always going to side on freedom of individuals to make their own decisions for them. I'm not going to support mandatory shutdowns. You know, this is the world we live in. I made a comment as an employer. I'm a small business owner, my law firm. And I made a comment on social media. You know, I would have problems firing someone who wouldn't take the vaccine. And people just lambasted me saying, you're part of the problem, allowing selfish people. my clients are sick, so I had to take the vaccine or I would be out of a job. I couldn't support my family, so I took the vaccine. I said, I'm not anti-vaxxer. I took the vaccine, and then half the world called me a sheep. You're just sheep, you just follow along, and that's kind of part of the division. We got to get back to just voting for the best candidate. I think against Elizabeth Warren, even if I disappoint you on some issues, I believe I'm the better candidate. And I believe it's better for Republicans and independents, and I'm getting some Democrats. Yes, sir.
How can people donate to your campaign?
Great question. Listen, Ian was 100% correct when he said that in order to defeat Elizabeth Warren, it's going to take a lot of money. She's got $5 million in the bank. Last reporting, I had $1 million. And she's going to outraise me. I know that. But John Deaton for Senate.com. Anything helps. $5, $10, $100 or more. But I promise you, she's at a 41% approval rating. She's passed one bill in 12 years as primary sponsor. She came in third when she ran for president here in her own state, right? 57% of Boston.com readers says she's vulnerable to me. Fox Business did that segment, Why is she so scared of me? Just 2 days ago, she sent another text message out saying, bringing up that super PAC, saying the crypto people are behind him. He outraised us. We need help. She's running scared because I'm going to take it to her on the issues. You want to talk about income inequality, Senator Warren? Let's do it. I'll spend all day talking about that. Yes, sir.
So you talk about the crypto and you talk about how our debt, it's paying interest on the debt. So do you support Donald Trump's plan to eliminate the Federal Reserve Bank, a private corporation owned by foreign interests? And do you and understand that it's because our dollar has an interest attached to it and it's not an interest-free currency that is one of the major reasons, and probably also because it's not backed by anything anymore.
Yeah,
What's your
listen,
thought about that?
I'm actually happy that, I was into Bitcoin in 2016. And saw it as a hedge against inflation, debasement of our currency. I'm glad to see that President Trump has now agreed, wants Bitcoin mining in the United States, and is talking about putting Bitcoin as an asset on Treasury, sort of like gold. We have some gold. America's the #1 holder of gold in the world. He wants to be the #1 holder of Bitcoin as a way of bolstering the dollar. And so there are ways to use crypto. Stable coins, for example, and Bitcoin can be used in a way that actually bolsters the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. And there is a way to use it to help with the debt. And the Federal Reserve, I would agree with President Trump that the Federal Reserve is a big part of the problem in this country. I can't say that I'll go as far as abolishing it, but I would go as far as greatly reforming it, and possibly abolishing it. I just need to learn more about it.
Read The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Okay.
Also, I would encourage you to reconsider your opinion that Donald Trump is the one that divided the country and not the media with their PSYOP reporting. One,
no,
and also I will suggest to you, maybe consider this. You don't have to tell us what you think about it now. You don't have to answer this.
Sure.
But I feel like in asking us to vote for you against Warren is, even though we may not have chosen you in the primary, is very similar to you not wanting to vote for Donald Trump.
No, I understand.
So, because you don't agree about certain things. I would ask you to consider that.
I accept that. The first part, if I suggested that Donald Trump is the cause of all the division, I didn't mean to suggest that.
Yeah.
I was saying that as part of it, and after assassination attempt, I just hope. I was asked the other day, John, what would President Trump do to get you? And I said, I was ready there, but when you go back to all of this name calling and division, I honestly believe we're headed off a cliff. I honestly believe that we're 15 years away from a socialist country.
Oh yeah, we are. And one more thing.
Yes, sir.
That assassination attempt, do you believe it was what the story was going to be, a lone nut, or do you think it was a setup?
Well, here's what I'll tell you. I don't like to get into conspiracy theories, but I would tell you this. The first thing I did was pull the aerial view. I'm a M16. I'm a double expert shot with a 9mm Beretta. I was only a marksman with the M16 because when I rolled over from the prone position, I zeroed in on the wrong target. I hit all black, but I hit the wrong target. So I got marksman for the M16, and I haven't shot the M16 in a long time, but I could make that shot from 450 feet from an elevated position with a clear line of sight every day, all day. And so when I saw that, I'm like, this, I immediately said, this is such gross incompetence to such an extreme that no person would ever think this could happen, that it suggests insiders or some kind of thing. And I don't blame anyone for feeling that way. I've been so busy on the campaign, I haven't really looked into any more information on the killer. I know that they cremated the body.
Well, that's
very
pretty
quickly,
sus.
and they do things that certainly suggest. But I can tell you is that it was so bad, right? Like you literally would say, what's the one spot where you could get the cleanest shot of the president, and it would be that building. And so it's hard to imagine that they're that grossly incompetent. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes.
I agree with everybody here that I think our country is in a crisis. The one thing I am curious is, how do you think the legalization of marijuana in the states, in defiance of federal law, has potentially influenced that situation?
You know, I don't know how much it's influenced it. Listen, I'm a former federal prosecutor, and so I can tell you that putting marijuana as the same schedule as heroin, you know, I disagree with. I do disagree with that. There's a difference that doesn't mean I support like legalizing it federally, right? I think it's up to the states, but I do favor not marijuana being on the same level as heroin, because there's a problem too, is you have small businesses that can't get banking because of the inconsistency with state law and federal law. But I really don't have an opinion on how that's contributed to sort of where we are. Although I know that marijuana has been a gateway drug. Listen, drugs were all around me all my life. You know what I mean? I talk about it in the book. My mother, we didn't have money. One day, the worst thing I ever experienced in my childhood, worse than the child rape, was listening to my mom cry when we didn't have food. And listening to those tears and those cries still are inside me today. And so I talk about how I couldn't deal with that, so I went across the street, asked the guy how much to sell that bag of pot. He said, I'll give you $50. Caught a bus, sold it, took the $50 to a crackhead down the street, said, I got $50 cash, I'll give it to you for $100 in food stamps, because crack dealers didn't take food stamps. And I got the $100 in food stamps, took it to my mom, and then I watched her go from tears to the greatest joy you could ever imagine with that $100 of food stamps. So I know that people that went from marijuana, then they go to coke, and then they go to heroin, but I'm not an expert. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Got two more questions. 1, 2.
Nowadays, a lot of young people and kids, they addicted to the TikTok. And also, there's a saying, actually, the TikTok is actually controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. And there are a lot of information and disseminated from the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. So my question is, how do you think about the TikTok? And how do you think about the bill of banning the TikTok here in the United States?
All right. Anytime when there's a ban of something, it's going to be a red flag, right? But I do believe that TikTok is a problem, and what we need to have done is that either American entrepreneurs are on the board of TikTok, and there are certain safeguards that TikTok must comply with or be banned. Or you sell the TikTok that's in America and operational to an American company. I would support that, because I do believe they're collecting information. If you look at the TikTok user agreement, you know, it's pretty extensive, and I think there are legitimate national security risks. So I would put safeguards in place of people who we know are going to report those issues to the United States. That can't be bought out. By the way, I support term limits. The first bill I'll write is that you get 12 years as U.S. Senator or Congressman. If you can't effectuate change in more than a decade, get out and let someone else do it. And that'll solve the question that the young man had about how you're not going to let, how you're not going to sell out. Well, you can't sell out if you actually can't be reelected for a third term.
And the final question is over here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi. I think one of the most, it was referenced a little bit, one of the most dangerous parts of the way the country is going is because of the mainstream media, the way they spin, gaslight, lie, and all that sort of thing. So one part question is you not only have to run against Elizabeth Warren, but against the media, how they're going to block and spin it on you. So if you have any ideas of how you'd fight that also, and then more generally, if there's any way of legally holding the media to account for doing that stuff. They have broadcast licenses and things. Is there any legal basis for
other
bringing
than,
them to heel?
Listen, class action lawsuits, I'm a lawyer. Some of my opponents call me class action lawsuits. I've only done 2 of those in my career. One of them for token holders. All my lawsuits are individually against the major corporations. And so I think aggressively pursuing them in the court. But the question is the media. Listen, J.D. Vance suggested $5,000 tax credit for kids, for parents, and the media was like, oh my God, that's like dangerous. Then Kamala says $6,000 and it's a great idea. I get it, you know what I mean? The tax on tips, when President Trump said he did not support tax on tips. I'm 17 years as a waiter, so trust me, I feel that. Then it was like, this is going to cost the federal government $10 billion. Kamala suggests, or steals, however you want to put it, no tax on tips, and oh my God, she's for the people, right? And so I get it, but I'm someone who believes in our system. I sued this United States government because of our checks and balances, and I won. I did it for free, and there's other ways to do it. We have a Supreme Court now that just stopped the Chevron deference, which was a great decision, and I think we're going to see similar if we push the court system more. Thank you.
Okay, some final thoughts here today. First of all, the candidates are still here, so if there's some lingering questions, you can talk to them. I want to thank you for your patience today and just sitting around for several hours. Enjoy yourself, have some food, let's finish that up. We'll take some photos up front with some of the candidates. And let's see, I want to thank the Fitzgeralds again for hosting this party. I mean, it's a beautiful location. One of the hardest things for candidates to find is a location. So thank you very much for that. And I'd like some photos with all 6 candidates. I want to mention that one candidate was not here today. That's Sal Perla. He's running for state rep in Leominster. He was not able to make it today. But other than that, all the candidates have been for the Worcester Middlesex District. And thank you for going out and voting for who you like. And God bless America.
Yes.
Oh, never mind.
Thank you, Kathy, for setting this up. You did a great job. Thank you very much. And I would encourage everyone to go to the candidates, plural, that they like, and talk to them about making a donation today, while you're here, instead of going online or maybe with their help do the QR code, or talk to them and make a donation today. I encourage you. Thank you all for coming, and we'll do the photos now.
Perfect. Yeah, all 6 candidates, if you're still here, come on over. Then you can talk. Photo opportunity.